Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. In today's episode, I have 7 different Christmas signs to show you. These are all fun and super easy to make. I think you're really going to enjoy all of these. If you guys like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. If you do like any of today's signs, remember to hit that thumbs up, but let's go make some DIYs. This piece of wood is just left over from another project that I had, and I've been saving it, trying to think of a sign to use it for, and I'm going to make a darling little Christmas Believe sign. Now, it's rather plain the way it is, and so I'm using some of this trim that I got from Lowe's. It's very long. It's like 6 feet long or something like that, so I can't fit it all into the frame, but I just found it in the trim section, and there are a lot of different types of trim that you could get to use on the edges of signs. So I just liked the way this kind of looked like candy cane swirls to me. So I just cut it down at a 45-degree angle on each of the corners on the edges. I just measured the edges of the sign and then just cut that down either with a handsaw or a miter saw, table saw, whatever you've got. And then I'm just using some wood glue and just a teeny bit of hot glue to give that really quick hold, and then that wood glue will be that long-term hold. And I'm just going to go like a puzzle piece and glue each of the edges onto here, making sure that I line it up straight with the edge of the sign. And you can see I'm just going to push it down to make sure I get a really good firm hold there. And I just want to make sure when I'm placing the other pieces that the corners line up really well. So just pay attention to that as you're doing this. But as you can see this sign coming together here, that trim really does add such a nice touch to it. Now for my sign, I'm going to paint the entire thing white, both the flat part of the sign and then the trim as well. You just want to make sure that you are getting into the little grooves of all of your trim really well. Either pounce up and down with your brush on all of those little grooves there. Whatever you need to do, a sponge brush would work really well also. Dollar Tree has started to have a lot of different laser cut words for different seasons and different holidays. They both have them in wood and then they also have them in tin. But I am going to use this word that says believe here, and I'm just using like a baby wipe and some red paint to go over this because I wanted to keep that crisp cleanness on the edge of the laser cut sign. Now, you can use a paint marker, which I have discovered is a lot easier than doing this method, even because you sometimes will get some snags from the baby wipes with the wood. It'll leave some of the little teeny like cloth fibers, which I'm not a huge fan of. So if you have paint markers, try that. I think that will work a little bit easier and you can be very clean with those. You can also pick up individual paint markers at the craft store if you don't want to buy an entire pack of them. But I just took the sign, I'm back to my sign here, and I just took some antiquing wax. Now you could also use some brown acrylic paint mixed with some water to do a wash on this if you wanted, but I'm going to go around this entire trim, pouncing all of that antiquing wax into those grooves. And then I'm going to wipe back the excess. I really like the aged look this gives to the sign. I feel like with all of that beautiful trim on there, you want to be able to see the detail. And if you just leave it painted solid, I mean, it looks fine, but I think a lot of that detail is lost in that custom look that you're getting from this, and it looks kind of flat. So I do suggest doing something, whether it is a darker shade of a white paint or something, or just a little bit of a darker shade or lighter shade even of the color that you had used. That's going to let you see those grooves a lot easier. But you can see I do go over again with a little bit more white paint on my brush to brighten up the raised areas. And you can see how in all of those little grooves of that little swirly trim, how it really makes those pop and you can really see those. Since I've distressed the rest of the sign, I take a fingernail file and just go along the edge of some of this word believe to peel back some of the paint, make it look a little rustic. This is just a matter of personal preference, so do as little or as much as you want. I take a little bit of antiquing wax on a baby wipe and go around the edge of the letter so that way I can have that antiqued look rather than the bright color of the wood. And I'm just using some super glue. I like to use the DAP brand. I get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. Gorilla Glue, even super glue from Dollar Tree is going to work fine. But just place a little bit on there, maybe not even as much as I did, but you're just going to center that and press it down and let that dry. I am really pleased with the outcome of this sign. I think this is so beautiful and I love the simplicity of it. It really does make a statement, and that trim, I feel like it sets the entire piece off. I would love to know if you guys have used trim like this before, or if you would like to. I had so much fun with this sign. I think I'm going to start using it on some of my other signs because I really feel it gives you that custom look that takes your piece to the next level. I love using pieces from Hobby Lobby's clearance section. If you guys have watched me for any length of time, you know that I love picking these items up and I just keep them in my stash because they really are such a great deal than just buying true like blank signed blanks, because you can get such wonderful pieces for at such cheap prices, and you just change the way that they look completely. So this is inspired by something I saw in a catalog last Christmas, and it's been in my mind for a long time, and I thought this is the perfect sign to do this with. So I taped off all of the frames so I could paint it and not have any paint get on that beautiful frame that was on this. And I'm just going to peel that back after giving this probably about 4 coats to get the coverage that I wanted. Now, I did use my cutting machine to cut this out because I have the world's worst handwriting. If you guys have watched me, you know that I do not freehand anything well. Stenciling, I do stencil quite a bit though. I don't usually use my cutting machine all that often, but I did want to for this particular project because I loved this font here. And I'll list the font down in my description box, so if you want to try and replicate this, you can. But stencils would be so cute, even using Dollar Tree stickers. Now, you can have different red trucks from anywhere. I'm just showing you a few that were in my stash from Dollar Tree, or one was off of a garland. I have this wood cutout that I never used last year, and I thought it would be really cute because I wanted to put the red buffalo check paper on it. So I'm just tracing out the silhouette really of this truck here, and I'm just going to cut it out, and then we'll glue it on just using that famous purple school glue you guys have seen me use 100 times. I really do love this glue. It works so well. So I just carefully line up my truck as best as I can. I didn't cut it so exact. I wanted there to be a little bit of an edge because I will, after I use my brayer, of course. This just helps get that really good bond with your paper and your surface. I take my sander here, just my fingernail file, and definitely a fingernail file works so good for these little pieces like this. And I will just sand off the edge of the paper to have a really good look. Now, if you're worried about paper edges, I'm just taking a little bit of black paint on my baby wipe and going around the edge to cover any type of white paper that you might see when you do that. Now, I have this tree that came, this is a Dollar Tree tree, and I thought it was so cute and bushy. I did just use some, not pliers, but some trimmers. I can't think of the word right now, but anyway, I cut the wire off. Wire cutters, that's probably what they're called. I cut the wire cutters, use the wire cutters. My goodness, I'm struggling. Anyway, I cut the base of the tree off, and I'm just using some hot glue to glue this into the truck here. And then to have it fit flat on the surface, I did just kind of bend apart the bristles on this I almost called it a brush, but it's a tree. It's like a bristle brush tree, I think is what they call them, or a bottle brush tree, something. You'll have to let me know down in the comments for sure what it's called, because I'm not quite sure. My mind is still trying to get totally into this Christmas mode here. But I'm just using some little blocks there, as you saw, to glue onto the back of the truck to help pop it out, have a little bit of a 3D look. And if I needed to cut any of those bristles off on that tree, I did that to make sure that it would fit as flat as I could on the surface. And then I'm just using my heat gun to get any of the hot glue little strings that you get. This just kind of melts those away really easily. But look at how darling this sign is. I think it is so cute. And you just read that and you just kind of can't help but sing it in your head. And I just think that little plaid truck looks darling on here. What do you guys think of this piece? Do you like it? I just love this DIY, and I am using a Dollar Tree calendar to do it. I love this December page. I think if you can get your hands on these, definitely get these because there's some beautiful pictures in all of the calendars Dollar Tree has. So I'm just taking a wood round and I'm just tracing it around on this calendar page, and I'm just using my trusty Elmer's glue, you guys. Or if you know me, you know I love this glue. I feel like it does such a good job. So I use it in a lot of my projects. So I'm just putting it all over that wood round, and then I am going to line up as best as I can this calendar page. Now, it doesn't go all the way to the edges, as you can see, and you'll see what I do to kind of fix that. There's a lot of different methods you could do. I'm covering up that hole right now just by placing another little piece behind it that I cut off of one of the edges so it blends right in. It really does disguise that hole. Now I'm just taking the little scraps of the pieces that I had cut off when I made it a circular shape, and I'm just kind of lining those up with some of the wood grain that are on the sides. So that's kind of how I take care of it. Now you can do painting hacks. You could use pages from another calendar page. However you would like to do it, you can use a smaller round so that way you know that it's going to fit. Now, you guys, did you see the price of this sign right here? It was like $1.36 or something like that. I got this at the wedding section at Hobby Lobby, and honestly, the wedding section is one of the most underrated aisles in a craft store because a lot of people just kind of overlook it. They don't think they need to go down because, oh, I don't know anybody that's getting married, or I'm not, so you kind of ignore it. There are some amazing deals, amazing things down those aisles. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm just taking some styrofoam here, some floral foam, and I am just gluing this in the middle of the sign. And I did kind of cover it up with paint. You end up not seeing any of the design, so I really didn't need to paint it, but I'm just lining that wood round up as best as I can. Now I am making a 3D layered sign. If you guys have watched my channel for any length of time, you know that these are some of my favorite DIYs to make. These actually, I've been making these signs for years. I absolutely love them. They're so fun to do for different holidays, and they are always such like a crowd pleaser, if you will, if you're going to resell things or anything like that. I just love how these turn out. You really can customize this with the design that you use on the front of your sign and the different florals. I purchased all of these florals from Walmart. That's where I happened to be the day that I was picking out things for the projects. And so that's where these came from, but Dollar Tree makes some beautiful florals. So you can do this as economically as you would like, or you can kind of go for a little bit more. I find that Walmart honestly is pretty comparable in price, and what you get is to Dollar Tree. So I just take these little pine sprigs that I got. I was 2 of those that I used, that I cut the little stems off to place all the way around. Now I think of this like a clock when I'm making it. So if I have like 4 of something or 8 of something, I mean, I kind of spaced out like hands on a clock. I hope that when I say that you can kind of see what I mean by that. But when I pick out my picks, I like to pick different textures and different colors. So whatever looks good, and I'll pick at least 2 or 3 up of a sprig or a pick that I like. And then when I'm doing these signs, I just cut them down so it's just like each individual little stem that I'm sticking in. But you can kind of see these little gold branches here, add a different little like element of texture there that you probably weren't missing. And then when I added them in, you know, I felt like it did kind of just something else to look at. One thing that I do is I go over the calendar with a page with a little bit of white chalk paint to kind of fade it a little bit, to give it a more distressed look. And I go around the edge with some antiquing wax to add a little bit more dimension to it. But look at how absolutely stunning this is. This is such a statement piece, and you can customize it so many different ways with different florals, different things on your front plaque there. Please let me know your thoughts on this, and if you like to see these type of signs keep coming, because these are some of my most favorite to make. I love doing DIYs that incorporate the true meaning of Christmas, and I'm going to use this little laser cut nativity from Dollar Tree. They generally every year have something very similar to this that you can do this with. Now I'm taking this sign, this is from their summer line here, and I really like this seashell. So a true crafter, you know, you take things apart and think, oh, maybe I'll use this. So into my stash it went. But I'm taking this sign, and I love these square signs that they do this time of year. I'm just removing the little frame. Now the frame is in 4 separate pieces that you can see here, and I'm just using my putty knife to kind of slide under them to tear it off, because it is kind of, the adhesive that it uses is on like a paper that the sign is printed on. So you'll just have to rip that off and make sure that you have all clean edges for your frame. Now after I do that, I just am taking some scrapbook paper. I love this burlap, and so that's kind of the look I was going for. You can personalize this to anything you would like to use. And I'm just flipping this sign over, and I'll just trace along so I know kind of where to generally cut. Now I don't cut right on the line. I kind of cut a little bit to the side of it because I do want to sand it to get a really clean edge. And I'm using my most favorite glue. You guys have seen me use this so many times. This is the Purple Elmer School Glue, and I really have such great success with this and crafting. I don't ever have pieces that peel up or anything. And I just push this down, and then this is a really good trick to do when you're using your glue sticks, is to use a brayer like this. And this is going to make sure that you have a really good bond. It is going to get any bubbles or anything like that out. Now what I like to do with my scrapbook paper is I take my fingernail file here. I love to use fingernail files when I'm crafting because they get into all those little nooks and crannies. And I just sand in a downward motion away from the paper that I just glued on and get a nice crisp clean edge. You can see that paper peel right off there. It looks like that paper was meant to go on that surface. Now I'm choosing to paint my frame that goes around this picture black, and so I'm just painting all of the pieces that go to this frame here. I left the pieces of the frame in the order that they were, where they went on the sign, so that way I knew where to exactly glue them back on. So I'm just taking a couple pieces from this nativity. It does have the little wise men with it, and it has like a little stand that holds them up. I mean, it's absolutely darling. But I really just want Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus here, along with the little stable. I thought this was so cute. And we're going to use this. Now, I kind of had them set up like that, but I'll set them up a little bit different. You'll see on the surface how I end up doing it. I wanted them to be a dark color of the antiquing wax rather than using like a baby wipe like I normally do to just kind of lightly brush it on. So I really went thick with the antiquing wax on this to have that. I wanted a very natural wood look to it, but I did want it to contrast with what I'm doing. So I did a very heavy coat. Now I just found this Joy to the World sheet music online. I just searched in Google Joy to the World sheet music, free, printable. Several came up, so you could do whatever hymn you wanted or whatever song for Christmas time or for whatever time of year you're doing a DIY like this. But it was totally free, and I am just tearing off the edges here, and we're going to age this paper. So when I go around the title, I definitely want you to see that title there, The Joy to the World. So I take my time going around that as I'm tearing this. Now I have this little kit. I've used it before. It helps with making like aged documents, aged papers. I don't know why I said documents, but you get my drift here. So it's just going to make this look really old. Now you could tea stain this. You could do several different processes. I just happen to have this kit from my scrapbooking days, and so I'm just using it. And you just kind of dip. It's like an ink, very light ink, and it's got this little dabber that you will dab in that, and then you just kind of rub and buff it on there, and it gets this nice aged look to the paper. Now I didn't tear the bottom of my sheet music because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to place it on my picture. So after I kind of used my stable there for some spacing, I decide exactly where I want to tear this, and then I will go and I do distress that edge too of the paper. So now to make it look really old, I'm just crumpling it up just as if it was garbage or something here. You just want to make sure to get lots of wrinkles in it, and then just lightly, just be careful not to tear it as you're undoing this. I mean, I guess some tears would look okay, but you just want to have it mostly intact here. And then I'm taking a little bit of this ink and I'm just rubbing it directly over very lightly, and it hits each of those little wrinkles and it just makes them pop with a little bit of texture and definition. Now to make this like more sturdy and it's not going to have water that ruins it or anything, I do put a coat of Mod Podge both on the front and the back. And I'm using my favorite school glue here again and just placing this on there. Now you could easily, mine goes over down to the edge. You could center this to be completely in the center if you would like. There are so many different ways and things you could do this. I do use my brayer here to make sure that all of the wrinkled paper gets put down. You want to make sure you have a good bond and it's not going to peel back or fall off. And then just using hot glue, I just carefully piece all of the frame pieces back and hot glue those just to make sure that they're all where they were. Now I'm going to place my stable and my nativity here. And before I glue them down, I just kind of play around. And this is when I decide to put Mary and Joseph on the side of the stable. just because I didn't feel like you could see them super well if they were placed on the stable, and with the spacing of the frame that I was using, I thought they would look cute kind of on the side there. So that's why I decided to do that. But I'm just using some of this, I think it's Aleen's tacky glue. You get it at Dollar Tree, and I've heard a lot of crafters use it. This is actually the first time that I've used it, and it holds pretty well. I just didn't want hot glue, and I didn't have any super glue close by, so I went ahead and used that. Now I do want to put a beaded handle back on this like it originally came, the sign. So I'm just taking some wood beads and I am staining them with just some antiquing wax, and I'll just thread them onto some twine. And then all I will do after I thread these is just tie it on to the top of the frame. So I just push that. When I put my frame on, I made sure to line the holes up that were originally there from the little shore sign with the seashell, and so I just tuck that through, and then I just tie it on either side of this sign. That way, if you decide you want to hang this, you definitely can. If you want to leave it and not mess around with putting anything on the top, or just put some twine or some beautiful ribbon or something, that would be completely up to you. Personalize it any way that you would like. I just love incorporating the true meaning of Christmas into the Christmas DIYs, and I thought that I would definitely take an opportunity right now to do that. I love the simplicity of this. I love this Christmas hymn. I love the rustic way that this looks, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful in my home for Christmas. I picked this sign up at a garage sale, and you can see that it came originally from Hobby Lobby, but you can see that they've written some writing on there for preschool from a little while ago that writing would not come off of there. I'm sure it was probably something that just sat on there long enough. And so I decided to repaint over this. Now I'm just using some of Dollar Tree's chalkboard paint, but you could easily do any kind of black paint just to get the coverage that you would need. And it only took one coat of this to cover up that writing, but I just kind of carefully go around all of the edges, and you can kind of see I'm just drying it with my heat gun, and how well it turns out there that you cannot see any of that writing or anything like that. And I just love this heat gun, by the way. I have it linked down in my description box, but you guys, it's such a game changer when you're crafting. Now I have this little nativity scene that came from Dollar Tree. It's kind of a three-dimensional scene that you can stack. It comes with the little wise men as well, but I'm just going to use the Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, and the stable here. And I am painting the little figures white so they pop against that black of the chalkboard. And I thought when I was doing this that I would stain the barn structure a wood color, because that was probably, I just felt like that matched a little bit better in my mind with how it should look. But originally I was going to do everything white to kind of pop against that black, but I thought it would be kind of more fun to have that on there. Now I'm just using some of my Elmer school glue to glue this on. I did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just absolutely love this glue, and it will hold very well for what I need it to, because these wood pieces are very thin and it's got a flat surface, so the bond actually will be really good. But it is something that if I did want to remove them later, I could just stick like a little putty knife behind them to peel them off there, and I could use this again to make another sign for a different season, or do something different if I wanted to. And as like with super glue or something, you wouldn't be able to do that. And if you were to use hot glue, I don't feel like they would kind of pop out a little bit more. It wouldn't be as flat as you want them to. So now I just thought at the bottom of this it would be really cute to add a little bit of mistletoe, some greenery. I really love like the little red berries on here, and then just this cute little bow that I tied there. I just think this is so simple and elegant, and I love any way that I can incorporate a nativity into my Christmas decor, because I feel like that just brings the true meaning and the true heart of Christmas into your home. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this one. I am very, very pleased with it. I fell in love with this Joy to the World sign and the cute plaid trees on Kirkland's website. It does retail for $29.99. Let's see if we can do better. Any frame that you can find will work for this. I happen to have this frame from IKEA. They do sell them for around $7 or $8, I believe. I am just going to take off the matting and that paper, and I'm going to just reveal this little backing here. I'm going to use this and spray paint it black and use that for my scene. I like the idea of doing this because then if I want to reuse this frame throughout the year, I can still just place a picture right over the top of it, and it will still be waiting there for Christmas next year. I chose to cut my Christmas trees out on my cutting machine, but do what works best for you. You could easily take some different Christmas tree shapes and trace them on the back of different scrapbook papers and freehand cut them out. That would work very well. I'm just using some purple glue stick on the back of my trees to get them to adhere. I absolutely love this stuff and I feel like it gives a really good bond. I do use my Mod Podge roller just to go over it evenly to make sure that all of those little edges of the tree are stuck down really good. For the lighter colored trees, I thought it would be fun to use a gold vinyl. I thought that would add a really nice shimmer. So I just placed them down kind of like a sticker over the tree. I am not worried about the different texture there, seeing the other tree pop from behind. That doesn't bother me at all. But I just go through and get all of the trees placed similarly to my inspiration piece on Kirkland's website. Using two different fonts that I found online, I will leave a link to those in my description box. I made this little Joy to the World decal on my cutting machine that I'm going to place on the top here. And I really love the feel that this font gives. Of course, I couldn't find the exact fonts that they used on Kirkland's piece, but I felt that these gave a very similar feel, and I really like the way that this looks. And then it's time to just pop the backing back into the frame. I did leave what would be the glass. IKEA does like a little plastic film. So I left that off so that way it was an open look there. So here is the inspiration piece from Kirkland's, you can see. And then here is my piece that I did. What do you think? Did I get close? Do you guys like this one? I think it was about less than $10 that I did. So definitely like a third of the price. You guys know that I am a big fan of checking out your wedding section at your craft store. I found this darling sign there that somebody would probably just overlook thinking, oh, I don't need a sign that says sign our guest book. And maybe you've had a wedding and you have something like this sitting around and you can totally make it be something that you can use for your decor. So I just take it outside and I sand off that design because I don't need anybody to sign my guest book. And I just sand it with my electric sander. And I'm going to go over the top of it with just a light brushing of just some chalk paint. I go really light at first. I do get a little bit heavier than this, but I just take my time going slowly so I don't overdo it, but I do want a very rustic look to this sign, but I wanted it to be a little bit brighter than what that background left. I am a big fan of finding different ways to make signs, and I'm going to show you guys how to print on tissue paper today. I am a big fan of this. So I'm just taking a piece of paper and a piece of tissue paper, and I am printing it where you'll have a shiny side of the tissue paper and kind of a dull side, and you want, at least I like to print on the dull side. So I print it or tape it with the shiny side towards the paper so the ink will not slip on that shine, that it will have something on that little matte dull side to adhere to. Now this is the first time I've tried printing on an entire page like this. I'll usually just tape a little section onto the front of my paper, but I want my sign to be the whole size of my paper. So I am just taping all of the edges down. So as you saw, I put my piece of paper down and I'm just folding all of the edges over. That way I have the entire surface area of the front of the paper for my design to print on. Now I make sure that all of my edges are completely taped down, and so I just go over them. You can see how that looks here. And then I have got this entire front surface here, and I just feed this through my printer like a normal piece of paper. So you obviously want this side right here up for your design to print on, and you can see how big the design looks and how good it looks. I purchased this design from one of my favorite graphic shops on Etsy. I'll leave the link down in the description box. They have different designs for all sorts of seasons, and they're absolutely beautiful. So now I'm just carefully removing the tissue paper. It doesn't matter if the back of this tissue paper rips at all because we're going to cut the excess off, but I obviously don't want to go just, willy-nilly and pull this off really quickly and have it end up ripping the front of the design. And also make sure that you give a fair amount of drying time to your design. I waited about an hour after I'd printed this. I was just busy doing some other DIYs, letting this dry completely. And you can kind of see how the ink goes through the tissue paper onto that normal piece of paper. So you just want to make sure to give it a little bit of drying time so that way you don't have any problems with the ink smearing or anything. So now I'm just cutting off the excess of tissue paper all around this sign so it will fit onto the top of our surface. So I just take some Mod Podge and place that down. Now you can use glossy, you can use luster, satin, whatever type of Mod Podge you have is going to be just fine. And I just lay the tissue paper down, and then I sped this up a little bit, but I do just gently rub with my finger to kind of get as many of the bubbles and wrinkles out. Now it's tissue paper and a liquid, so you are going to get a little bit of the wrinkles, and that's totally fine, especially with the rustic look. And but you can see here, if it gets too bad, I can just kind of pull it up gently, and I can kind of reassess and adjust things if I need to kind of keep rubbing that design down to get it completely adhered to the surface. Now, if your sign has these grooves like my sign has, I'm just taking a paintbrush with a little bit of water on it, and I'm going over the top of this. This goes right through the tissue paper. I get it wet first, and then I will go back over it to kind of make those indentations in the design so it looks like this is actually part of the wood. You want to make sure to go over and seal everything in with another layer of Mod Podge. This is just going to seal in the ink. It's going to give it a little bit of like waterproofness. If water was to get splashed on it or anything, you wouldn't have any problems with that ink bleeding or anything like that. Then to help the top and the bottom of the sign where I have the excess blend in, I'm just dry brushing a little bit of antiquing wax onto there. It glides on very smoothly with that layer of Mod Podge there. And then I pay attention to the edges, and so it looks like that sign blends completely in. And then I go over the tissue paper with a little bit of the white paint that I had that I painted the sign with, just a dry brush, just to kind of give it a little bit of an aged look. So now I felt like this sign, you could leave it the way that it is, but I felt like it needed a little bit of embellishment. So I'm just tying just a normal shoestring bow out of this buffalo check ribbon that I have, and just kind of making my loops down to size of how big I want the bow. And then we're going to add some greenery and things to this. I'm just taking some leftover greenery and some little red berries from other picks that I have cut down, and I just tie a couple together, and I'm going to use some hot glue to glue the berries in each side there because the stems weren't long enough to tie together like the greenery was. And then I'm just going to, you can see, just glue those right in there, and then I will glue this to the top of the sign here. And I do that just using a little bit of hot glue, and then you just want to make sure to hold that in place until that completely dries. And then the same thing, just glue that bow onto the front. And then I just dovetail the ends of my bow. You can cut them at an angle, do however you like to do the ends of your bows. I did leave my tails longer so it would kind of drape down the sign. So you can see I'm just using a little bit of hot glue there. That's just going to help my tails kind of hang and droop the way that I want them to. And then I just kind of do a little bit of fluffing on the bow and everything there. And look at how absolutely darling this is. I think this is beautiful. This would be such an easy project to make and sell if you had a booth. I just think this is so cute, and I'm so excited to get to decorate with it. Thank you so much for joining me today to watch these beautiful Christmas signs. I will be back with an all-new Christmas-themed video for you on Saturday, so stay tuned for that. If you want to be notified of any of my upcoming videos, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you did like any of today's signs, please hit that thumbs up button. You guys have an amazing day. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.